you're like, oh, this is not going to end well at all. This is really gonna like just destroy a lot of people. Hey, everybody, Father's Day was in June, but it's August, so why not? We'll just say it. I love my dad.
I love my dad, which takes on a totally different meaning with this film. Really, really loves his dad.
I met someone online. She's like smart, funny.
And you've like talked to her on the phone and stuff?
Obviously.
James Morosini. This is a crazy story. He's the writer, director, and star of this film. This actually happened to him. This is about how he got catfished by his own dad. This is not a spoiler. This is the whole idea. This is the whole point of this movie, is that he and his father were estranged. His father established this fake online persona to still keep tabs on him and get to know him. But it escalated and
it worked too well.
It was too convincing. That's what this film is about. So James Morosini has taken this shocking, traumatic series of events in his life and mined it for comedy, which a lot of folks do. And this is definitely the very specific cringe brand of comedy. So Patton Oswalt is his dad, who, as we learn from a sort of a quick montage of phone calls early on, has been kind of a flake. There's always some excuse for why he can't be there for basic stuff in his son's life. And so finally, James Morosini's character, Franklin, is like, I just can't rely on this person anymore. I'm cutting him out of my life. So he's blocking him across all social media and his phone. And Patton Oswalt's character, Chuck, gets an idea from his coworker, played by Lil Rel Howery, like, just create a new Facebook account and just like say hi, and then you can still be in his life somehow. But it goes like wildly off the rails. He uses a photo of this beautiful young woman who is a waitress at the diner where he always goes, played by Claudia Sulewski, and it's way too convincing. And the way that Morosini takes this idea, it's a sort of a one joke idea, but finds different avenues into it and different visual perspectives through it. It's pretty inspired. I mean, it kind of runs out of steam eventually, but like the way that he introduces this young woman, Becca, beyond just the typical, back and forth on a chat screen or on a text screen, like the way she is integrated into his fantasy world of his life.
As though she were in the room with him.
As though she were like, hanging out, watching a movie with him, or like going for a bike ride or a jog or whatever. Like and from the beginning that he is in a kind of a precarious, vulnerable state. And so you are asked to either sympathize with Patton Oswalt's character or view him as just a monster for preying on his son's insecurities and vulnerabilities, or somewhere in between. I appreciate the gray area this movie occupies. What do you think?
Well, you're kind of underselling the where the son is. At the beginning of the movie, he's receiving counseling for having tried to end his own life.
Right. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but okay.
Well, but I mean, we learned this in the very opening minutes, and I think that it's important because Patton Oswalt knows this and yet still can't stop himself from like falling further and further into the lie. And it kind of reminds me of, there was just a show on Showtime, and I think we've seen a lot of shows that have sort of used this idea called I Love That For You, where Vanessa Bayer plays a woman who is trying to become a host at a shopping network, and when they're about to fire her, she blurts out, "I have cancer." And she'd had leukemia as a child, but as an adult she's been fine. But that lie just snowballs out of control, and it gets harder and harder to defend. But at the same time, it's helping her in the thing that she wants. It's boosting her image at the company. And so it's like, you're just watching helplessly, like, oh God, that something is going to make this fall apart. And that even when the person at some point tries to remedy it, it's like, it's too far gone at that point. So this whole movie is like that, where you're just like, it's kind of like, I was thinking about it, it's like a farce, but tragedy. Like it's got all the crazy spinning plates and the close calls and the awkward whatever of a farce, but it's also like, you're like, oh, this is not going to end well at all. This is really gonna like just destroy a lot of people. But that the guy that it happened to is telling the story, so obviously he came out of the other end of it okay. And I think weirdly that helps make the movie more palatable. I think if you didn't know that, you would just be thinking, like, you'd want to be Googling, is this guy all right? Did he make it okay? So like seeing him tell his own story in this very direct way, I think takes some of that off. But yeah, this is a Kegel movie where you're just like, you know.
Patton Oswalt is so good in it, and we have
He
seen
is.
him explore really dark, weird territory in movies like Big Fan.
Yeah,
Right, like he's known
and
for
young
being,
adult.
yeah, exactly. Like he's known for being like funny, kind of affable with a bit of an edge to his humor, but like he'll go to weird, sad, dark places. And
Yeah.
I love when he does that. He does that here. And just the precariousness of the performance, as you say, like it is a farce, but there is this like deep sadness and longing underneath it. And he finds that balance in a way that's consistently impressive. Amy Landecker is pretty good.
Yeah,
as
Rachel
the
Dratch.
mom. Rachel Dratch is really, really great in this because she has to kind of function as an unwitting cog in this whole machinery, and she's part of the awkwardness too. And Claudia Sulewski is really good too because she has to play various versions of this character because she's this fantasy girl, but she's also a real person in real life. She has to portray various versions, various slightly different versions of this person, and has to quickly shift the tone based on what Patton Oswalt means with his tone in the text or whatever. So I thought it was a pretty impressive little balancing act here.
Yeah, and I love Amy Landecker in anything, so I'm always excited to see her in a movie. This is caught me by surprise. I thought early on, oh man, it's not unlike Marcel the Shell, where I spent the first 45 minutes thinking, surely they cannot stretch this out to feature length. And by then we're going, okay, I guess they could.
They do. It kind of runs out of steam.
A little bit.
A little stretched out a little bit, but
a little bit. It's I was at a festival in Europe one time, and they put me on the mid-length jury, and it was all these like 75, 80-minute movies. Okay. It's like, we need more mid-length movies. Like there should be a category for that in this country where like you could release those, because not every movie has to be 90,
Right, especially this time of year when like every superhero blockbuster is 2.5 hours long. So I'm saying 7.2.
What did I say? I forgot.
You said 6.5. Do you like that number?
I'm going to stick with that. Yeah, I think it doesn't, it does definitely, I think, run out of steam. And, it relies upon, it is a bit of the same joke over and over again, but they do find, you're right, they do find sort of avenues and like specific things that happen where they have to work out, oh God, how we're going to get through this. I will say it has what I imagine will be the most awkward sex chat scene ever filmed.